Now we're going to move to the final last lap here, the closing remarks. Each one of the debaters will get 2 minutes to sum up or rebut whatever they'd like to say, and I'll give you a 1 minute warning, and we'll start with Jim. You go first.
I've never said that our current system is working well enough. I think we have a good system, not yet a great system, and I think we need to do a lot more to improve it, and I think we can do so. And I would just note in response to Amy's comment that we simply can't afford to develop a mechanism to follow up on living donors. If we can't afford to do that, then we cannot afford to do what we need to do to make a market in living vendors and sellers for kidneys work. We cannot, I would argue, we should not, I would argue, damage or destroy our system, which is not working as well as it should, and we need to improve, by adopting a flawed market in organs. Our opponents have proposed a radical change in our organ transplant system, and yet they have failed, in my judgment, to satisfy the burden of proof required for a drastic alteration of a system that is working fairly well and that can be further improved. By contrast, we've, I think, given good reasons for suspicion of such a market, and I hope that you will vote no for legalizing, that is against legalizing a market in organs.
All right, you have a minute left. Okay. Thank you
Can
for...
I take his minute?
Well, I'm going to go to Sally
yield
next.
his time to...
Sally, you have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Sally Satel.
Thanks. Well, during the time we've been here tonight, yes, someone has died. And this was a real person with a real family who would have lived if there were enough organs. It may sound maudlin, but it's very true. And this is why we need to compensate donors. Altruism, or whatever is in that area between being paid and giving an organ, is not enough. And insisting that it remain the basis for transplant policy is a reckless and derelict stance that will only guarantee a future of suffering, and not just for the patients, but for who will languish and die on dialysis, but for black market donors as well. Our opponents hate the black market. Well, so do we. But somehow we learned something they never did, that the only way to stop illicit transactions is to sanction legal ones. Simply clamping down on illicit sales only drives it further underground or causes it to blossom somewhere else. And the only way out of this tragic bind is to increase the supply. And the only way to do that is through a fair, transparent, safe, and legal means of exchange. Until then, the fate of third world donors and the patients who need their organs to live will remain tragically entwined. And until then, our opponents, who refuse to allow even experimentation with compensation, will be complicit, yes, complicit, in fostering the organ trade. We welcome the other side to work with us, but as you've seen, they've never met a proposal they didn't reject or attack. They have a dearth of creative ideas, but an abundance of passion for obstructing innovation. In closing, unless we establish a legal market for kidneys in some form, we should brace ourselves for more needless suffering and death. Our side refuses to stand for that, and so should you. It's too high a price for a humane society to bear. Thank you.
Now, speaking against Francis Delmonico.
When Sally says someone has died in the past moments, what you have to understand is that someone has died and a market system wouldn't have impacted that death. If you're dying in need of a heart, you can't buy a heart. So someone has died, and we do need more deceased organs. There's no question about that. But the premise of a market system by death on the list is not resolved by a market system. Next, a dearth of creative ideas. Sally and I have met on a number of occasions to talk about what we can do differently to provide care for live donors that does not exist in this country, but is not a cash payment. Sally and Amy are contradictory when Amy says you can't go out of the country, and Sally says, well, you can go right now out of the country.
I could have gone.
Exactly. She could have gone, and they do go. And it's not just that they're going from the United States, but they're going from Canada and Saudi Arabia and Israel and the Gulf countries and from Europe. And where are they going? And why wouldn't they go? And the question that was posed to Amy, the 72-year-old patient that she has, And Ira comes along, and he, in this system that they, Ira's going to be the donor. Wonderful. But why should that 72-year-old or a 50-year-old accept Ira when they can go to Manila if it's legalized? Right? Sorry, Ira.
It's okay.
Why should they
It's
accept?
an old kidney. So.
Why should they accept Ira when they can go for a 20-year-old and purchase that because the United States says it's okay to buy your kidneys? Let's have an outlet store in the poor countries of the world to go and buy kidneys. That's the problem that's created by the United States saying it's okay to have a market.
Thank you.